Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec podcast episode. You join me and Tijmen and Coleton and Jordan at the hub where we are discussing Model 3 performance suspension upgrades. And sort of individually, but actually what's funny is all of us own Tesla Model 3s at the table here. And Jordan's the only one who has a stock one. The rest of us have upgraded them with actually all Mountain Pass performance suspensions. All of our cars are upgraded with Mountain Pass. You'd think it would be sponsored or something. But in this episode, we want to talk about why we've chosen Mountain Pass, how each of our cars are set up, because they are different, and what are some of the components we used, and maybe just talk about electric and performance in this episode. So join us for an episode of the Out of Spec podcast talking Model 3 suspension upgrades.
All right.
Great. Well, that's basically the intro. So let's start with Coleton, because Coleton, you have been modifying Model 3s for a while. Was your all-wheel drive on different suspension?
Nope, stock suspension the whole time, because it was a lease.
Okay, so I think maybe then I was the first who modified a Model 3, my 2018 long-range rear drive.
The Cannonball setter.
Right. We set the Cannonball record in that car by literally laying pack. Just got the cheapest. Actually, I think the springs someone gave to me for free. They were like a misbuild. And they were like, "Oh, throw those on your car. We'll try them out." And it rode like ass. It was terrible, but it handled pretty well. But we, just lowered the car with a spring change and kept the stock damper and really the stock alignment. And it just is not the way to do it. I've been modifying cars my whole life, and I've done all the stupid stuff, done some really high-end stuff, and you really need to think about chassis improvements from a holistic standpoint. So that was my first foray into Tesla modifications in a sense. I guess I did some stuff to my Model S before that, but doing the spring without a lowering spring without changing the damper is not the move in my impression. And then on my 2019 Model 3, I learned my lesson. And once I decided I'm going to keep that car forever, I ended up putting a fully adjustable coilover setup with actually a lift block to retain sort of factory ride height and maybe even a little bit higher. And we can talk about everything we did to make it like a super squishy, smooth, almost like a rally dirt suspension setup. But what we really want to talk about is, Coleton and Tijmen's car in this episode, which they've modified their Model 3s for performance upgrades. So Coleton, why don't you walk us through the saga on your Model 3 performance, because you've gone through multiple iterations and revisions, and now you have landed on, I think, a good setup.
Yeah, totally agree. So when I first got my 2023 performance early on, I was like, I just want to lower it. I don't want to spend another $3,000 on suspension right now. I'm just going to do springs.
Yeah, so what's the cost difference between spring, maybe doing it the wrong way, in my opinion?
So springs are $420. And full coilovers for Mountain Pass, almost $3,000.
Yeah, but you can get a full Eibach system with springs and sway bars for, I think, is like $900.
Yeah.
For like their track prep.
And that's just a lowering spring, thicker sway bar.
Yep.
Is it a damper change?
Nope.
Use OEM.
That drives me nuts because the damper has a specified working window that the OE sets it up for. And then your spring, well, maybe you can retain the same spring rate, but in general, the spring and damper should be, engineered to work together.
Correct.
To provide the best ride and response and handling characteristics. And when the damper's always compressed, it's not actually working at its designed element. So did you do springs initially? That's what you were saying?
Exactly. So I did unplugged springs and heard a lot of great things about them because they were using Swift springs. I know a lot of us have probably heard of those. They're very high quality springs. I ordered them, they arrived, and they were Hyperco springs. And I thought, okay, that's a little strange.
What's that? Is that a worse or better, or just a different company? Or
I understood it to actually be pretty decent. I talked to one of my friends that owns, like a mechanic shop, but he's also been into autocross track stuff, and he's like, Hyperco is actually pretty decent. So I was a little confused by that, but I got the suspension installed. I actually had one of the Tesla service techs do it. So he came to my shop because I was like, I don't want to destroy this brand new car.
But it wasn't through Tesla official.
Nope. It was on the side, like, here's some cash, come do it at my shop. So he got it installed, honestly rode pretty well. My biggest issue with it, though, I don't know why, but the lowering wasn't enough. So I ordered Unplugged's moderate. So they have like a moderate. I think they even have like one slightly above that to raise the car. So I did moderate, and then they have a low. So I got it, and I'm like, guys, this didn't really lower the car. So I call up Unplugged. First off, they have very good customer service. They are very responsive, happy to help.
Can you explain who Unplugged is?
Yep. So Unplugged Performance is basically a company who seemingly to me has some sort of affiliation with Tesla because they're within like a city block of each other, from the design studio and things like that.
Yeah, they're in Hawthorne, but they're a Tesla tuner.
Exactly. So they do, suspension components, arms. I mean, they do full body kits and stuff.
Yeah, it's literally everything that you can get for your car,
Right.
Unplugged makes.
And they even do police specs now.
Which is
Right,
really
that
cool.
looks sweet.
The
Which I
upfit stuff is neat.
have to imagine is in partnership with Tesla to get control of lights inside the car. Because I watched their video on them going to a police test track, and they had no extra computers in the car.
Really?
And just the screen and
Really?
like radio controller or something.
So do they use you mean on Cybertruck or on all of them?
All of them.
Wow.
They didn't show anybody turning the lights on specifically, but
Mhm.
it seemed like,
Maybe that's why they don't want.
yeah, I don't know. There
to.
could be buttons on the bottom,
Yeah.
but it didn't look like it in the video.
Yeah, I mean, we've known Unplugged for a while. They, did the Pikes Peak racing, which I always thought was really cool and great for the electric movement. They're certainly enthusiasts over there, and they do have some in with Tesla, no question.
Yep.
They almost feel like Alpina before Alpina was acquired by BMW,
Yep.
in the sense where I could see Tesla in the future, if they really do get a performance fizz to them, maybe would buy Unplugged or have an unplugged version of a car, a bit like a Brabus Smart,
Yep, exactly.
so that I feel like that could happen. Also, in general, I don't think many Tesla owners as a whole are modifying their cars. And so as a percentage basis to new cars sold to aftermarket modifications, it's still quite small, maybe compared to some, AMGs or stuff like that. What do you think?
Yeah, besides Model Y, so I've seen a lot of folks do the luxury suspension that both, I believe Mountain Pass makes one for that to improve ride comfort on Model Y.
Didn't even know that. That's
Yep,
cool.
and Unplugged does that. So
We should do a video on that because Model Ys ride like shit.
Yeah, terribly. So like Jeebs has done it, one of our good friends.
Yeah.
He's done that on his car and he was very pleased with it. Justin Bearded Tesla did it as well. So I was like, okay, yeah, seems like a cool company and improving parts,
Yep.
always that kind of OEM plus type vibe to vehicles.
They seem like they put a little bit of a Tesla tax on stuff, though.
For sure.
Yeah, it's like a M tax.
Yeah,
Even though
M tax. Yeah.
the same 318 suspension fits an M3
Right.
type of situation.
It just feels like, they know that Tesla owners who are modifying have some money, so they try. I mean, they've got to run a business as well, and they
Sure.
want to appear premium. And I'm not saying everything they make, like on a part by part basis, is going to be the most expensive or the most cost effective. I'm not sure, but that's just my vibe. Is like Unplugged charges
More than they should.
like 20% a bit higher than maybe the market value. I think. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Seems like
everybody's, different. Like Mountain Pass suspension is actually more expensive than Unplugged for coilovers, at least.
But Unplugged is in-house built. Mountain Pass is KW.
Yep.
Branded
Lots of
Mountain
differences
Pass.
But I guess back to the springs. So I got the springs on and I'm like, guys, these like barely lowered the car. And they're like, that's pretty weird. Send us some measurements, let it settle. That's pretty normal for suspension.
And you let it set up for a while.
Yeah, a while. So reached out to them. They actually sent me a completely different setup. So I believe it was a front spring and a rear spring. So I got the front on and I'm like, wow, this looks incredible. Lowered the car. And then I got the rear spring on and the car had this kind of rake to it where the front was sitting super low and the rear was super high. So I reached back out. They sent me another rear spring and they're like, this is our low spring for the rear and you have the moderates up front. So I put that on, didn't change it at all.
That's so weird. So every time you have to jack the car up, pull the spring,
Tear everything apart.
yeah, do this back
Which is
and forth.
terrible on the front, but the rears are
Rear's
okay
not
to
bad.
do.
So on one hand, it's nice that they are working with you and trying to diagnose
Yep.
what's going on and sort this out. My impression of Unplugged, though, is that they would have tested each component on every version of car before it's sold.
Right. And Model 3s had a lot of suspension changes over time from your 2019 to my 2023. Very different. Because my car is almost the same as, I think it's identical suspension to the rear wheel drive and dual motor all wheel drive.
That's right. They used to have a different performance
Exactly.
suspension. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I got the springs on there. I was never happy with it. What they ended up doing said, hey, sorry for your troubles. They refunded the whole thing. So I was pleased with that.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to run these until I decide to upgrade to
You're
coilovers.
still out of that time.
It's time. Yeah. A lot of just wear and tear on the car. I hate tearing stuff out of suspension components get a lot of abuse as is. And then you're cranking them out of the car, torquing them down, untorquing them. It's just it's a lot.
I wonder if they would have refunded because obviously you did the install yourself, but I wonder if they would have refunded shop time.
I doubt it.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
Most
I doubt it.
people wouldn't do that.
Yeah. But I feel like that would be,
Yeah.
that's what I would do if I read
Yeah,
it.
I'd pull the ultimate Karen and just be like, "Are you kidding me? I spent so much money." Blah 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 blah. Give me a refund.
Yeah.
I'm
But
not one to be super aggressive with that stuff. I'm just
I definitely
listen,
am.
I had issues with it. So I felt like, it was an okay compromise. They let me keep the springs on the car for the time being, and I didn't have to tear that back out. And
did
send
they
it to 'em.
know that you're a part of Out of Spec?
Oh, yeah.
Did that play into them being super nice to you, do you think? Or
I don't know. I think they were
Okay.
receptive to it.
Did you use your out of spec email?
Nope. I mean, I talked to a bunch of guys there, and we know them through Zach as well.
yeah,
one of our
I like the
friends.
guys there. Yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome. I mean, they're very receptive to communicating and all that. Love it. I mean, I had no issue with that part of it. It was just
You
in
got
my
unlucky with
particular
the
case,
spring.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is a one-time deal. It is what it is. I'm going to leave it alone. Do you want me to continue on to the now coilovers or?
Yeah, I think we covered the lowering spring topic.
So I decided December, Black Friday kind of rolled around, around Thanksgiving. I was like, okay, now I'm going to buy myself a little Christmas present. I worked pretty hard this year. So I'm going to get suspension and started looking at Unplugged stuff. And they had a crazy deal on their new coilover
Yeah, I
setup.
think it was $2,000 and it was
Yeah.
$1,000 off or something.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, $2,000. I can stomach that. Let's try it. I've heard a lot of great things about it.
What did it come with?
Full coilovers,
So you have your spring and damper as one.
brand new damper.
With
Yep.
a top hat, which is pretty big for Tesla's parts,
Which
at
was
least.
the big thing.
So explain that.
So top hat, I don't know, Jordan, can you pull up Unplugged site possibly? And we can kind of walk through this so I can show you a little bit of differences there. But one annoying thing when you're tearing apart the front end of a Model 3 suspension is you have to use spring compressors, which Tijmen and I both hate using.
It's a hand grenade is what
They
it
are
is.
so sketchy, dude.
And when I did mine, I had mine pointed right at Dave's Macan.
Really?
Dude, if those things slip, like that top hat
My
becomes
mom would have been pissed.
a literal missile. Yeah, they're sketchy to use. So
Yeah.
Unplugged stuff now came with, a new top hat.
All
So
right.
Nice
Jordan-
brakes.
Well, let me accept
Yeah,
some.
those
Those are the
are
brakes
sweet.
I need on my Plaid.
Dan Birkland just installed
Holy
these on his.
$9,000.
Yeah,
So they're
buddy.
15 from Tesla.
Aren't they 20 with trackback?
No, that includes the wheels.
Oh,
The new zero G wheels, right?
Yeah. I like the wheel.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got all that Tesla credit. I might end up, I don't know if, because it expires.
Oh,
Right.
use it. So
So-
then maybe it fixes your car.
Right. So my plan is if we don't end up getting a new Model Y or the extended battery pack in the Cybertruck, I'm not going to let the money run out. I'm going to get track pack on the S.
Yep.
Yep.
So go over there to performance suspension, Jordan.
To the right.
All right. And you're going to scroll down. So Tesla Model 3 Sport. It's up
Left.
the top there.
Yeah. So for those of you not on YouTube, Jordan, welcome to the channel.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm the only one at the table without a performance, so I don't have a camera. Base model over
Are
here.
you gonna upgrade your Model 3 lease? What are you gonna buy that thing out at the end of the lease? What are you gonna do with it?
I don't know. I mean, probably not, but it's possible. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a great car. That's why
A motor.
A motor,
Yeah, A motor.
rear drive.
I got to get the sexy buttons installed, which I think just arrived. So,
Did they send them to you?
yeah.
Great.
So, but yeah, we got the Model 3 Sport Pro coilover suspension pulled up on YouTube. Sorry if you're an audio listener. If you're listening, well, they're cool and blue and shiny.
Actually, if you're an audio listener, you will be at ease because I'm stressed just looking at the number of apps Jordan has open right now.
Yeah, his sidebar is a bit much, and it
big
doesn't
task.
auto
Also,
hide.
what's up with the left sidebar?
Yeah, well, it doesn't auto hide. That's the biggest
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Come on, Jordan.
I've got my system down.
See,
And the biggest thing is Apple Music too.
I can't. I love everything Apple except Apple Music.
Agreed.
Okay, well, suspension.
Okay.
All right. So why is there a $200 difference? What's that option? 26 to 28.
So put in a 2023, Jordan.
Okay.
2024 plus is Highland, I guess.
Yep, exactly. So I know the issue that a lot of people didn't really consider with new performance is they have an electronic. How do you actually describe that in the new performance?
It's
It's
adaptive
electric damper.
suspension.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Adaptive.
they now have to have a canceller for that
Yeah.
Well,
if you upgrade to full coilovers.
Yeah. So it doesn't throw a fault.
Yep. So I believe that's probably the price difference there.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
No
Yep.
is.
Yep.
Yeah. But Jordan, choose a 24 model year.
Then
Yeah.
it will show.
Yeah. And
Uh-huh.
now go there. So yeah,
Yep.
that's the $200
Exactly.
option. Okay. Yeah. Mountain Pass sells that as well.
Yep. Exactly.
You have to.
So realistically, though, I think they are basically unchanged from the suspension on this to the new performance in terms of the hardware they're selling.
Right. Well, the architecture is the same.
Right. Exactly. So this is the kit that I got here. And so you'll notice the bright, shiny blue top hats on this, which is basically where the suspension kind of cradles up into the top of it. So instead of having to reuse the OEM one, this just comes pre-installed. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing. You don't have to deal with spring compressors. They're super sketchy to use. I always hate doing that.
And
And-
you don't need this for the rear because the spring and the damper does not go through the spring
Right.
in
If
the
Jordan
rear.
were to go to the 2 photos down,
Yeah.
that's for the rear,
Yep.
Yep.
where it just sits on the top of the spring.
Yep.
And then the photo below that one shows the top hat pretty well.
There you go. Yep. So there's the top hat. On the rear, you actually do use the OEM top hat for the rear, which is not a big deal to get off because it's not under tension of the
Right.
spring.
You can droop that rear suspension, slide the spring in.
Yep,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to take the strut out anyway
Yeah,
as well.
Just
But
to get it to drop.
the other thing with this too is they have compression rebound settings on this different from Mountain Pass, but they're in one notch instead of 2 separated ones. So
So it's a single valve
Yep.
versus a dual valve,
exactly.
which I always prefer a dual valve.
Yep,
but
sure.
So that could be, I guess, I wonder how many people are actually dialing this in. So it just has that one top adjustment.
Yep.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
and some other big differences here is these are completely different to the way Mountain Pass does their suspension, being that basically the shock body rotates up and down instead of basically tensioning that spring.
Yeah. So if Jordan were to go to 2 photos up
Yep. Yeah, you'll be able to see it
there
there.
on
better.
the right, you can see that there's a collar on where it connects to the lateral arm for front suspension. That entire black piece will rotate to raise or lower the car. On Mountain Pass
you
Performance,
mean you twist the whole thing
Yep.
and that adjusts ride height.
yep.
How do you do it when it's on the car though?
So it's actually pretty easy. Those two, so on the top there where the spring sits down, you have 2 locking pieces. What do you call those, Tijmen?
collars?
Yeah, 2 locking collars there, and you spin those either up or down together in series, and it moves that whole piece up and down in there.
Okay. That's cool. That seems
So-
to be nice.
Yeah, so that's been one thing that I've always played with coilovers is that when you do it similar to Mountain Pass, how you do that, your spring rate is changing because you're putting more tension on that if you're lowering the car a
so
lot.
this would be my preference where the spring rate is fixed for the type of the car that you have.
Yep.
And ride height does not affect suspension tuning.
Theoretically, but it still does.
How? Other than the damper.
I don't know because we'll get into this, but the car did not ride well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, and then the other thing is too, if you look at that rear strut there, you also have adjustment there and on the actual spring. So this to me, when I was looking at it from the outside perspective compared to Mountain Pass, I was like, wow, there's a lot more adjustability here. What do you think, Tijmen?
Yeah, a lot more adjustability, but a lot more needed to fine tune it.
Yep.
To make it perfect. I think the rear shock adjustment is the dumbest thing because you're still ruining your suspension kind of because you're limiting how much your shock can extend at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And on the Mountain Pass stuff, it's just compressed.
Yep.
And it can still reach max if you droop out the rear.
Yep. And the frustrating part with this was, so this new suspension that they have out with the top hats, they don't have complete guides on the height that it should be set at, because they're basically setting at the old one. This has preload on. There's so many complicated things that goes into fine tuning suspensions, and they don't have the updated specs for this. So I went into it very blind. Now, the nice thing is, like I said, again, Unplugged is great with customer service, very responsive. So I call them, said, hey, I need some kind of, figures here. And they're like, oh, you want this at 10% of the stock and all this. And I'm like trying to do the best I can.
Right. And that should be just given to you as a consumer.
Totally agree.
That it's just in the box. Mountain Pass does it. They throw a sticky thing in the box that has a QR code, gives you right to the instructions.
Yep.
There's video for most install bits, but also they give a detailed instruction guide.
Yep. So I think this was just, the kit's brand new. They hadn't updated it. They had no install video on it, because there's a lot of different components. Now, Jordan, if you'll bring up the photo of the suspension actually installed on my car, I want to show a big difference here, because this is where things got pretty weird. So sitting between the spring and basically the collars there is what they call a Durlin perch, I believe. And you can see it's a big plastic piece. Now, this made my life annoying, number one. So this came installed on the suspension when I opened the box. So I'm thinking, I'm not going to take that off, even though it looks different from the pictures online. Would any of you take that off?
Nope.
I wouldn't be installing the suspension.
Yeah, I would be installing
that would be a Tijmen topic.
Yep.
I mean, if I saw the difference there and it was not on the website.
Actually, I think it was on the website and they've changed it since.
Oh, if it was on the website, I wouldn't take it off and I would have left it. But if it was different, I might have called or DM'd them on Instagram, because I hate calling people.
And I think I did email them, and we talked about the Durlin perch, and they're like, yep, leave it on there.
Huh.
So here's the annoying thing with this piece. When this is installed, it increases the overall height of that spring.
Right, by at least an inch.
Yeah. So now you're having to compress that spring and get the top hat on, because it doesn't come pre-installed. And I'm like, why would they not have the top hat already all cinched up here with the normal?
Yeah, that's
parameters?
what you expect when you're buying a kit. I mean, having suspension without a top hat come in and before install is super easy, because there's no tension on the spring.
Exactly.
It's when you have to take it off. With coilovers, it's a little bit easier, because you can lower the car technically through the spring so that you don't have to compress the spring to take the top hat off. But if it's on the car, that's when it becomes a pain.
Yep. So with that Durlin perch, what I ended up having to do was basically change the preload, loosen everything down, move the spring all the way down, get the top hat set on, and then crank it back up. And dude, my dad and I were cranking on this thing. I'm like, this does not feel right. And get it on the car. I'm like, okay, we got it. It's fine. Get it on the car. Then I take this thing out for a drive, and that's where everything started to be really bad. So I was hearing this severe knocking noise out of the front, like almost a metallic sound. And I'm thinking like, okay, we left something loose. So bring the car back, go retorque everything, take it back out. The noise still persists. And I'm like, okay, this is a little weird. I've checked everything. I mean, realistically, Tijmen, there's what, 5-6 bolts total on the front
so
end?
I did my compliance arm as well. So there's 2 bolts on the bottom for your lateral arm and the compliance arm that face wheel side.
Yep.
And then 2 inside for if you're changing lateral arm. So 5 lower bolts if you're doing full suspension. Otherwise, it's just the suspension itself. It's 2 bolts or 4 bolts. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple there. So torque everything down, take it out, and I go, okay, we've got a problem. So I reach out to Unplugged, and they go, you've got something loose. I go, guys, I just torqued it. Like, I used all the specs on it. Everything's torqued. They go, okay, so now take the wheels back off. We want photos of everything in the suspension. So I send that. It takes a day to get back to me, which is fine.
Which is fine because you have 3 other cars. 2 other cars. It's annoying, but
it's still frustrating because my car's up on the lift. Like, I wanted to drive it. I was excited about this. So I send them these photos and I get the response back, well, that Durlin perch should not be in there. And I go, so why was it sent on the car? Well, this actually, unfortunately, was packed like our Race Pro kit. which comes with that Derlin perch. So all their kits are very different. So you have Race Pro, Sport Pro, Comfort Pro.
Which is this?
This is the Sport Pro.
So this is like the spicy street one.
Exactly. And it shouldn't have that piece in there. So what does that now mean, Tijmen? I got to take the whole damn suspension back out again of the front.
Again.
Yeah, so here you can kind of see at the top of the top hat, those 3 bolts for the top hat have to come out, which either you have to Dremel out the frame side of the car or get a specific 13 mil socket and then a bolt at the bottom to get the suspension loose. And then the easiest thing to do is disconnect your upper control arm and that you can squeeze it through.
Yep.
What was it? What was actually causing the noise? Was the Derlin perch rubbing against something?
We still have no idea. The suspension has, long story short, now gone back to Unplugged Performance, and they are sending me a refund. So at some point, I'm going to have Jordan play the clip of what my car sounded like. It was
Let's play
bad.
it now.
Because didn't you take out the perch and then also and then the noise was still there?
Yep.
Is that what you're talking about?
So they go, okay, you got to tear it apart. And I'm like, okay, here's another, a lot of time in this. So here's the clip of what it sounded like.
Sounds like a train track.
It really does.
Yeah, it does.
And you can see how like uncomfortable the ride is. Like the whole front end, it's just like
Nothing's
very
compressing.
harsh.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm thinking like, okay, something's really weird here. So I take the entire suspension apart. I pull that Derlin perch off. I put it all back together, get it set, and then I take it back out. Noise still persists.
So it didn't have anything to do with the Derlin perch.
No, but everything was wrong with it in terms of your preload's wrong, your height adjustment is wrong. So then
how do you mean everything was wrong? They told you that, or you set it up wrong?
It changes everything because that Derlin perch, this is actually, we'll talk about this in a second, but that Derlin perch is basically an inch spacer in there that
compressing the spring harder.
It changes everything, which messes with the entire suspension.
Yeah.
So I reach back out. I go, okay, guys, now the front's rubbing because I left it at the same setting, so I need to raise it. And they're like, okay, you shouldn't hear the noise. I get the car back off. You got to take the wheels off. Now you got to raise the car again. Set it back down. The next day, take it out. The noise still persists. And I'm...
Same noise or different noise?
Same exact noise. And I'm getting pissed at this point. And they're like, well, what other components have you installed on this car? And I'm like, guys, this is a stock car that came with your... lowering springs on it with the OEM damper. I took that out. I put your new kit on here and I now have this noise. Well, it has to be something else. Something's loose. Something's not right. So what I decide to do, Jordan, if you'll pull that picture back up, I tear the suspension out again and I put in the lowering springs with the OEM dampers. Noise completely goes away. So that to me says something like, well, there is some sort of issue with the Unplugged setup here. So that's what I put back in.
Well, others have run this Unplugged setup with no issue.
Our friend Zach has had this, and he said, dude, it's silent, no issues with it. And I go back to this, noise is 100% gone.
And so that's stock damper with
their Unplugged spring.
The lowering spring.
Yep.
The original setup that you modified to.
Yep.
Did you torque your end link properly?
Everything was torqued properly.
All right, because I had that same issue. I had a little clunk on the left side or the passenger side right after I installed everything, and it was just my end link that wasn't tight enough.
I mean, I've done the thing too where, at full droop, you don't actually want to torque these. You want to have it at ride height, torque that down, went through all of that multiple times, and I finally put this back on, and the noise was 100% gone.
Wow. So there was something's
wrong. I don't know if it's the damper, if it's the top hat, if it's the spring
and was it
hitting
your
itself.
Particular kit? Have we heard of anyone else complaining about this?
And that's, I asked them and they're like, we've never heard of this. So I'm thinking like, okay, at this point now I've got springs that aren't lining up to what their factory settings should be.
Right, because the springs were too high.
Yep. And I've got this new coilover setup that is making this atrocious crashing noise. And I'm like, I'm done. So I call them up. I said, listen, guys, this isn't working. I put the other suspension back in. The noise is gone. So that to me says something is wrong with the coilover, whether it's the actual hardware inside of it, whether it's the top hat maybe, because this is brand new to this.
Yeah, and we don't know what the issue is. It could have been something on our side. You could, like, maybe we had it left on the right side and right on the left
It was
side.
all right because they got the photos and they're like, oh, yep, it's right.
Okay,
Just the
then
Durlin perch needs to be out of there.
I have no idea.
I know for a fact it was not install error. There's something physically wrong with that.
Okay.
I mean, that could be totally wrong, but that's my opinion. I've tried it, tested it. That's what went on. So I said,
we're not here to disparage Unplugged, but at the same
Yep.
time, like, that's annoying. There's
Yeah,
no way
I
around
mean,
it. That's really fucking
this
annoying.
is strike two,
Yeah.
realistically. With
Well, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah,
How many
I-
times do you have to go back and forth on this?
Exactly.
The whole time I was just like, bro, what are you doing? This is so lame.
Yeah, totally get it. So Tijmen had since then, I think you had...
I had ordered my performance
Yep.
suspension from Mountain Pass already, just waiting for it to get in and then install it because pieces ship from all different parts of the world.
Really?
Yeah, so the actual suspension ships from KW in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and then
But Unplugged came in one box.
One box. Yep.
So the Mountain Pass,
suspension, if you just order suspension, yes, it comes in one box, but I had brake stopper thingy. I don't remember what it's called.
oh, great. Yeah. Master cylinder brace.
Yep.
Yes. And then I had the inserts.
I like it. The brake stopper thingy.
And then I had the lateral arm inner solid bushing.
Right.
So it was 3 or 4 different boxes that came.
Dang.
Surprised it doesn't just come from one warehouse, but that's their
It
logistics
seems
side.
to
Yeah.
me like KW just builds these and ships them
Yeah, I
directly
think they
from
just
their
put their
factory.
logo on and their colors. They have, I'm assuming, a different part of their warehouse that's Mountain Pass, and then they throw it together and ship it out.
Mm-hmm. So Mountain Pass is the competing company to Unplugged.
Yep.
Those are the two main.
For suspension parts.
right.
Because Unplugged still makes like accessories
Yeah,
and
police cars
headliner and all this other stuff.
Mountain Pass is sort of the grassroots vibe of like people who, I'm not saying Unplugged doesn't want to go fast. I'm just saying the impression I get from the Mountain Pass guys is it's like guys who want to go fast, help other guys to go fast. And I'm sure Unplugged has the same goals as well, but it's just a smaller, more down-home
Yep.
organization. And it's run by, so I know Bennett Unplugged really well, huge enthusiast, a friend of mine, known him forever. And Sasha, also a friend of mine at Mountain Pass. But like Sasha rips, and it was really funny. They just did this Cybertruck versus Rivian video.
Dude, that was so cool.
Just sending the trucks, and that's like kind of the I don't want to really use the word redneck with Mountain Pass, but it's a little bit of they can have fun. They get down.
grassroots.
Yeah, grassroots, and I like that vibe. I like the vibe of like, we're going to charge you like our cost plus a little bit, not do a huge Tesla tax thing. We're going to try and get you the best quality components. And I've just always had a good relationship with Mountain Pass, which is why I paid for all the suspension on my car from them. And I've been very, very pleased.
Well, and you have Drew that now does Model 3 Challenge with Mountain Pass as well, right?
Yeah, and I was going to do it at, I was going to race in Mountain Pass Model 3 Challenge this year at Laguna, but there was not enough people signed up.
Oh, really?
So they
That's
just
why-
canceled
We
the
could've had two
entire
extras
thing.
here.
Canceled the whole thing because there weren't enough people for
They
that
could have
one.
thrown me to a car.
Yeah. there
Good
we
luck,
go.
everybody.
Maybe we
else.
should do like an out of spec. We all take our Model 3s to the track and do.
Can we leave Drew at home? He's
Yeah,
too fast.
please.
Yeah, we can leave Drew at home. Put Drew in the Cybertruck.
There we go.
Yeah.
Or in the A motor.
Yeah, in the rear drive.
He would
I'll take
definitely
Drew's
beat me
car.
for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Yeah. So, okay. So anyway, just for people who are like not in the zone, Mountain Pass is that's the grassroots company.
Yep. And their stuff is extremely high quality. I mean, coming from KW.
Yeah,
I mean, KW
I was
is-
surprised. I thought it was just going to come from Mountain Pass themselves, and then they just get a sub brand from KW, which might be a little lesser quality, maybe they get personally. But as soon as I saw the box, I was like, "This is sick."
Yeah, it's really cool. And from my understanding, from what Drew told me, this is similar to a KW V3 setup,
Yeah,
which
I think.
is like pretty high end stuff.
Yeah, the only thing that's I personally found annoying is that you have to get a top hat.
Right.
For spending $3,000, $3,500 for a street sports setup, I would expect a top hat to be included.
I would
Which
agree.
makes install so much easier, and it allows Unplugged 2 or KW, since it comes from KW, to set a preload they recommend from factory, and then you can adjust from there.
Yep. Yeah, but preload doesn't necessarily matter with how the mountain pass is.
Or
designed.
height, right? What they recommend
Yep.
versus personal. Because I just grabbed it, put top hat on, tightened it a little bit, and said it's easier going down than up.
Yeah, it really is. It very much is.
We tried to go up on my car. That's a topic for another day.
Yeah, we need to do that again.
Yeah, it's
Need some adjustment.
yeah.
There.
Okay, so Coleton, let's finish up your car.
Yep.
So you did this. You went back to Springs to Unplug. Did you eventually send those back once Mountain Pass came in?
I still have the springs. No. So the coilover setup is now back at Unplugged. They're
The
refunding.
springs are still on your car. I thought you
No,
swapped them.
they're off, but I still have them in my possession, I guess. So they're off the car with the OEM damper. Maybe we should lower Jordan's Model 3 with those springs.
Yeah, let's do it.
They let you keep them.
Yeah, I have the springs, but I don't have the coilover setup. So the coilover setup that was making all the noise is now back at Unplugged, and they got the refund. And
Did they ever tell you what was wrong with it?
so they're going to test fit it to a car and see if they can replicate it.
Okay.
My still biggest guess, I really think it's something with the top hat, because that's a new situation. I don't know what would make the noise in there like that, but it was bad.
I mean, did you torque the top hat properly?
Everything was torqued to spec.
All right.
Went through, undid it.
Hold on. Let's
redid
ask
it.
him again. Colton, did you torque everything?
Yeah, once again, I did torque everything to spec. You know how weird I am with like very precise
Yes.
measurements.
I'm way more relaxed about it.
Can we
Yeah,
quickly talk about what happened when Kyle was telling us the torque specs when we were doing his car?
Yeah, it was like, we were like, oh, it's 90 pounds. And he's like, 80's fine. Or something like that.
No. Remember when we pulled that whole aluminum cradle off of his car because we didn't have the 13 mil socket on there?
Oh, yes.
And we're like, Kyle, what's the torque spec on this? And I think he said something like 110 foot-pounds. And Tijmen's sitting here cranking on this. And I'm like, Tijmen, something's not right there. And he keeps going. He's like, I swear it says 110. Snap.
I'm not good with mechanical stuff.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, there's a lot of things in there, but yeah, things break.
Over torqued, snap the bolt.
Yep.
Hell
And that
yeah.
was a shit show to get that out.
Oh, yeah, that's...
All right, back to
I've been there
Colton's car.
before,
Keep it
but-
on one Model 3.
Yeah.
Keep it on one Model 3.
Okay. So I then decided, okay, you know what? I've driven Tijmen's car in between all this. I'm like, I'm happy with how his car drives. I'm going to get the same exact setup. So I order Mountain Pass, whether there's Sport.
Street Sport. Yeah, it's not the Pro model, but
Yep.
it's not the Comfort.
Yep. So I get the Sport one, which is kind of right in between.
And what's the cost of that? Can we pull that up, Jordan?
Yep. So $2,980 for their whole setup there.
So a little bit more money,
Definitely a little bit more money.
but you get dual valve adjustment,
Exactly.
which
Yep.
is nice.
And KW essentially V3s, which are really high end. But yeah,
it's like competing with Olean's type of suspension.
and interesting, Olean's apparently on Model 3 are not great suspension setups. Everybody who's installed them said they ride extremely hard on Model
Everyone
3.
in the like performance driving Facebook group, they
Yeah.
all run KWs of some sort.
Okay. Huh.
Yep.
Interesting. So yeah, this is the Mountain. No, this is the Unplugged
Yep,
performance
Still
site.
unplugged.
Jordan's going to go to Mountain Pass here very quickly. By the way, Mountain Pass, if you want to sponsor Tijmen and I with some very cool wheels that you guys
Oh,
now
I
have.
love the Aero
Dude.
covers. I know Kyle's not a big fan of them.
Wait, let me see it. The new wheels.
Are they on the site yet?
Yep.
Yeah, if you
So
should
go
be
back
on the
used to sell
homepage.
Drew's wheels.
Scroll down.
Oh,
There,
geez.
the red
Ah,
one. Yeah,
what?
that is
Dude.
sick.
I hate that.
That
I'm
is
normally
so
like an
cool.
aero disc guy, but that's not it.
Absolutely love them. Yeah.
See, oh wait, pull up the picture of the Rivian in the air. That's what I'm talking about with them being redneck. That's
Yeah.
why we love them.
Yeah,
There we go.
hell yeah.
Yeah. That's freaking great.
Yeah, full flex out there. Love those wheels.
Okay, so you guys like the wheel? I don't know. Man, I'd go
Performance.
MW05 all day long.
Yeah, MW05s are pretty cool.
That's
but dang,
peak
these are
wheel.
sick. So
Down.
keep scrolling.
Adjustable.
On the left.
When I did my
Scroll.
car, I went on the website, hit select all, order.
Top left.
Sports. I like how
There
they
we
put
go.
sports with the S, which is the very British way of
Sports.
saying sport. It's the
They just plural-
sports.
They plural everything. They have maths over
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Stonks.
So, just to point out the differences of this one, if you zoom in, Jordan, yeah, that piece right there goes around your axle instead of over like stock suspension and Unplugged does.
Yep.
And then if you go up, you can see that it obviously doesn't have top hats, and then that's your rebound. And then on the other side, you have compression, right?
Yeah, they call it bump and rebound.
Yep.
Yep. So very different setup here from just looking at this, because number one, on the rear struts that Jordan was just looking at there, you don't have height adjustment. Your height adjustment comes from your rear spring perch, which, Jordan, that last photo there. Yep.
So you can change that. Oh, you could just scroll it up and down.
Yep, exactly, which is similar to Unplugged, because they have this on the rear spring as well, but they also had it on the shock, which was a little
Makes
confusing.
it so confusing.
Yeah, and every time you
But
had to
that
adjust
makes sense
that.
to me because you want the shock tuned for the ride height.
Exactly. So if you go really low, then everything changes there. Where with this, if you have it an inch higher, technically that's probably where it's tuned for. And Tijmen and I are pretty slammed, actually, so it's probably not exactly.
It's not
tuned
probably
for
not
it.
properly like
Set up.
but it's like a grassroots setup, more like proper quality, but you can install it at home.
Yeah.
Unplugged is like you need to go to a track shop and corner balance every single
Exactly.
side to get the perfect setup.
Which I like that. I want it
That's
dialed.
why I was so excited about
Yeah.
their suspension, because and Jordan, even if you look at the front damper there, so your only height adjustment actually comes from compressing that spring, essentially, Tijmen.
Yep. So Jordan, if you go to the second to last photo, you can see
Right
if you
there.
put your zoom into the middle. Yep. That you can adjust your height right there.
Yep.
That's it.
So basically, if you come, I forget how this goes now, Tijmen. If you come down on that.
Down, lower, up,
Yep.
higher.
Yep. So you're changing how that spring is sitting in there, which naturally, as your car gets lower, your car rides harsher. So that's why I was like, okay, the Unplugged stuff is pretty cool when you compare, differences to this, but I'm actually pretty darn impressed with, number one, the quality on this and how it rides after getting it installed. I had no issues with install on this. I did it in a day, in 6 hours by myself, one-handed.
Wow. Yeah, one-handed. That's cool.
One-handed wheelie.
Yeah. Yeah, buddy.
Nice. Okay.
when
It
I
took
get-
me a little bit longer, but
Well,
Yeah.
lacking brain cells. So
hey, he's got a lift.
yeah, that's true.
I
He's
did
got
have
a
a
lift. Okay, so tell us about the impression, the first drive. It's not been aligned yet, right?
Correct. Yep. So alignment's very off right now. Basically have like 4 degrees steering wheels to the left and then poles to the right. So just needs to get all dialed in.
Which
Everything
anytime
changes.
you do that.
Yeah, and you're taking suspension components out, putting them back in, like you're naturally moving some stuff around. So I did have it aligned actually before, when I had the springs on it and the OEM damper, probably a year ago now. And I did do unplugged rear camber arms, because Tesla, unfortunately, for whatever reason, you can't change any camber arms. Like there's no adjustment there. They're just factory set. This is how they are.
Right, and the lower you go, the more camber you'll have.
Exactly.
Which is just inside tire wear.
Yep. So like Model X has an issue with that. And that's why a lot of these companies sell arms for those, is so you can actually adjust it. Because on a, air suspension, when you have it really high and then you slam it, your camber actually changes. Most people drive it low in efficiency mode on the highway. Lots of tire wear on the inside.
From a
Not good for your
performance-
ball joints either. If you ride on like Rivian Conserve all the time,
Yep.
not good for your ball joints.
But from a performance standpoint, you do want some camber, because when you load the car up, you want that tire to stand up.
Bingo. Yep.
So, you'll see a lot of performance-oriented setups actually put in maybe like, negative few degrees of camber.
Yep, absolutely. So the other thing I played with was getting the bump and rebound set on this car. So Mountain Pass also has quite a few less adjustments than Unplugged. I think there's 16 total in Mountain Pass. Basically clicks on there, so you can make it harder or softer. And I think Unplugged was either 24 or 30
But single adjustment.
single adjustment, but it still adjusts kind of both, if
Sure.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I got that set up, and yeah, the car feels pretty darn nice. It's set up pretty soft right now.
Feels
still-
way nicer than mine.
Really?
Soft, like bump wise, yes. Because I left mine as it came. I wanted to go home, and I still need to jack the car up, and fine tune it. But you also had gotten a list from somebody else that has the suspension already and fine tuned
Yep.
it to where he recommended certain.
Shout out to Dan Birkland. He's the man. He's
Yeah,
awesome.
Dan's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So our friend, gosh, I just forgot his name. Dan Camp, of
Dan
course,
Camp.
bought his Model 3 Performance that had, I think, every single suspension component from Mountain Pass.
Right.
So Dan now has that car, and Dan. So Dan Birkland sent me all the specs that he has. Like, he has his alignment set up for street and track and street, dampening, rebound, all of that fun stuff. So I got it set. It's at 12 clicks on mine on both.
Yeah, mine's pretty on the firmer side.
Yep.
Which I like for driving wise, but for sitting on the highway, some bumps are a little too uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I still have to just fine tune that. I'll probably just use the same settings that you're on, but I mean, mine drives so much better than stock.
Yeah. I mean, the stock suspension on Model 3 Performance, at least 23 variants, was just like so mushy. I mean, you just like, you lean it over in a turn and you just feel like you're
Yeah.
flying out of there. And then it also always had that rear torque that you get, especially when you get the car loaded up. That rear end likes to really hop on there as well. So that's definitely been a lot improved with the Mountain Pass suspension. But you have changed quite a bit more than I have.
Yep. So,
You did the stage 1 kit from Mountain Pass?
yep. So it
Can you pull that up, Jordan?
includes the sport suspension, rear camber arms, inner bushing, and then the brace for the brake booster. So,
And changing a lot of these bushings are what actually really helps the car feel a lot better, I would say.
go to products. Yep. That's fine. And then it should show upgrade kits. Yep, I have the stage 1. First, second.
Right there.
There you go.
So that's like $3,700. So in full transparency, Mountain Pass sent this to us.
Yep.
But
I paid for mine.
Colton paid for his, and I paid for mine.
Thank you, Mountain Pass. And Kyle.
Something special about Tijmen over here. I don't know what's going on here. It was mostly because we reached out to them because we are fans. Obviously, we purchased our own suspensions, but we did this high mileage not high mileage, but this
Cheap Model 3
series
performance.
for your car, and we were like, hey, this car kind of drives like crap.
Yeah, so I mean, the bushings were gone. The video will come out in a week
Soon.
or so.
Yeah.
And the compliance arm, I grabbed a plier and tore the bushing out. That's how bad it was. It was
These
so
bushings
bad.
in Model
But
3s.
From what I hear on Reddit, it's very common with anything Model 3 related, especially pre-2020. Like, your car has an issue now with the same bushings. I mean, given you have almost 200,000 miles and I have 40.
I have 150, but yeah.
Same. But it was astonishing bad. But ball joints were fine. It's just those inner bushings just get worn out so quickly for who knows what reason.
They said 10 to 20,000 miles is on average lifespan of some of those on cars that have been driven hard.
I think my Cybertruck has torn up bushings because every time I hit a bump,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds atrocious.
Yeah.
It sounds like the motor's about to fall
yeah,
out.
it really does.
And the front motor walks around very
yeah,
oddly
the front end, it feels totally disconnected.
Yeah, totally
you go on regen and you go left. You hit the throttle and you go right, and it's been driving me crazy. And I got to bring it in because it's under warranty. We're not digging into that.
Yeah.
That's gonna go to Tesla. They're gonna say sorry, we can't find anything wrong, and then we'll deal with it.
How many
Yeah.
times has Tesla had your truck?
Oh, we're gonna need to calculate that for
It's a lot.
yeah.
Well, didn't they have it for like a month to replace your front motor?
They had it for a month. Yeah, well, I was gone, so I said, I can't pick it up for that long.
Yeah.
So they had it for a while. That wasn't on them.
But back to my car. So compliance arms were terrible. Lateral arm inside was also bad. So it worked out.
Bad in terms of bushing was
yeah,
bad.
bushing was
Yeah.
bad.
Like, yours were blown out.
Yeah, it was really bad.
When Tijmen would hit the brakes, you could see the whole
Yeah,
car.
if you slammed the brakes hard enough, like you could see when we first picked it up, it like moved.
Yeah.
And we thought it was upper control arm squeak. Nope. I did replace the upper control arms with new factory ones, which they now use like a plasticky metal type of.
Yep.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's not like a billet.
Oh, well, they're not load bearing, so.
Yeah. So took basically everything in the front apart and realized, wow, this was really needed. So don't buy a car from Arizona with for under $20,000.
I really think your car was used as like a benchmarking car or something.
Or a mule to go across the desert
Yeah.
or something and like
Yeah.
jumped and everything. I don't know.
Yeah. But once I got the suspension on, it took a day and a half to do everything, and it drives so much better. I had to shop press out the bushings because I tried to do it, and then the press was too small because it's a ball joint press.
Yeah.
Got that done for $80, so that was super nice. And I was blown away. I got in, reversed the car, turned the wheel, and there was no squeak. I was in zen. It was so nice.
How about the ride quality? I mean, obviously it's winter time here, so we haven't done much performance driving. But what's it been like on the daily?
I have no issue with it. Lexi, on the other hand, doesn't like it too much. She thinks it's too jolty on
Too
some
stiff?
bumps.
Yeah.
You want to trade suspension?
No. But that I still have to adjust my rebound and everything. So I'll do that in like the next week or so.
Yeah, we should dial it in a bit. I
Yeah,
think.
for sure. And then I'll get an alignment at some point, but it fixed my car. So at first when we got it, it was just
You
we're
still
going to
need
the
alignment.
left. Yeah, I'd need to do an alignment, but we're just going to the left. Put the suspension on, steering wheel was straight, and
Wow.
it pulled straight. That's how bad the bushings were.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I think I got to drive it. I haven't driven it yet.
It's good.
You haven't
Yeah.
driven mine either.
No.
Because you're on the Comfort with the lift.
Yeah, I have a Model 3 because it's just a car. It's not a race car. It just needed a daily driver.
Yep.
And I got put the Mountain Pass. So actually what I did with mine was I was selling the car and I used the wrong color ink on the paperwork.
I forgot about this.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And I literally had it sold for like big money. I forget
was
what it
big
was.
money.
Was it 40 grand? It was like I should have. It was right at the peak of car prices. I would have been so smart. I was off to Alaska,
Yep.
and I saw, and everyone was freaking out. They're like, "That's the reason we found you on Out of Spec," and like, "Oh, you're gonna sell that car?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're giving me a lot."
It hasn't been on the channel in 2 years.
Now it hasn't been, yeah. But then we essentially, I messed up the paperwork using a wrong color ink to sell the car to Carvana or one of those places. I don't know. And then I was like, screw it. I'll just keep it.
Yep.
So I decided to keep it. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to keep it, I want to upgrade it because at that point,
Because it used to be an actual race car. You treated it like an actual race
right.
car.
We've always driven the shit out of this thing. It does have a lot of track miles. Yeah, because we used to work out of the track.
Yeah.
So it'd just be full send every day around there. And it really did live a hard life. And it's amazing how well it's held up. So I decided to put on the comfort kit because I was actually getting into, I was thinking we could do some snow rally with it or dirt rally.
To be honest, he was just turning into an old man. We left
My
North
car
Carolina,
ride.
and he's like, I'm tired of this.
Yeah, I just want something comfortable. And yeah, so I got the comfort coilovers, which is lowering naturally.
Yep.
Then I put the lift block on top of it, which raises it back up. I kind of think I want to lower the car now.
It looks better lowered.
Yeah, it looks way better when it's dropped. So the original intention was to go higher. So we put the whole suspension on the car, and you were ripping on it to go as high as
Yeah,
it would
because
go.
our friend from North Carolina, Brian, I1 Tesla, he had it on his Model Y, and it looked like an actual rally car. And
Right.
it had like this much gap in between tire, and he was on 28-inch tires or something, knobby tires for Model Y, and it looked good. So it was like, we got to get to the same spec here.
Yeah,
'Cause he
the
was just
idea
on
was to
street
do
tires.
like an off-road Model 3 build.
Yep.
And
Didn't come to fruition, but
never got there.
no.
I mean, we could probably adjust it again right now and gain 1.5 inches maybe, but still not anywhere near.
It just looks like stock ride height.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks stock ride height. And there's that white Model 3 that we saw a few years ago. You were with me at the Holly off-road thing. Remember that?
That thing was so cool.
So that was the vision, was to
Yeah.
like get it up, get some tires on it, disconnect the sway bar so you could get a lot of, even front end tire lifting effect maybe.
I've done that
Yeah.
on an on-ramp, and I was like, oh, this is a little hot coming
Yeah.
into here.
The car doesn't actually really drive that great right now. It's great cruising because you get no head toss.
Yep.
But you do feel like if you come into a corner really hot under braking, like you do
It's
feel the
sketchy.
lack of sway bar, and the car is like, it's
Yeah.
not totally tuned well. So I think what I want to do, I talked to Sasha at Mountain Pass about it because I've also got squeaking now. My bushings have all
Yeah,
gone.
his compliance arms are now going out. So I'm pretty sure we did the inner lateral arms or bushings.
Because I did solid bearings on some stuff.
Yep. So that was the inner lateral. So your one that connects to the suspension.
Yes.
Your other one that goes like this.
Yep.
Needs to go now, and you have solid bushings downstairs.
Yeah. So what I thought my idea was, I was like, oh, maybe I can somehow get this car up to Canada to Mountain Pass and just have them go through everything, set it up for what we're looking for. Yeah, that was the intention for my car.
So
Not
cool.
obviously.
Grindhard Plumbing's Model 3?
It's a YouTuber channel.
Yeah, I think Grindhard's old,
Looks
like
sick.
first build.
Yeah, this is a while ago that we saw this thing.
This was November 2021.
Yeah, I think this
Yeah.
is Grindhard Plumbing's Model 3.
Yeah, maybe.
Dude, the hood cutout's so cool in that.
Yeah, so this was what sparked the like, oh man, how cool would it be if we did this with ours?
It's got a winch and everything.
Yeah, it's sick. And we watched it go around the autocross course and it looked amazing because it had so much flex. And we never really got there because they had some custom fabrication work done and some other stuff. And, we didn't really hack up our car. But yeah, so I don't know what my plan is with it right now. I mean, I want it to get dialed in. I want to kind of get it refreshed. I think
Shouldn't be too difficult to do.
Yeah.
Take the spacer off, sway bar back in,
Yeah.
the bushings, and you'll have a race car again.
Yeah, but maybe just turn it into like a little mountain cruiser or something. I mean, the thing with Model 3, it's so versatile. When you have a good chassis, you can do whatever you want with the car.
Yep.
And, I really do enjoy the ride quality on it right now for long road trips. And I can even back down the suspension more because it's adjustable. Mine's set in the middle. I think I never really touched it.
I know it's soft as can be. I
Is it?
remember when we installed it, you're like, I want it as soft as humanly possible.
Which is interesting because I was talking with the Unplugged guys about that because I originally had mine set pretty soft. And they said on the Unplugged stuff, which they don't tell you in the instruction manual, that if you set it on like the lowest setting, you can actually get air cavitation in the actual strut because a valve opens or something in there and it doesn't allow the fluid to go. I don't know the all technical terms, but like they said, you can actually damage it. So I do wonder if that's actually what happened with my suspension as well. But I did call the guys at Mountain Pass and they're like, yeah, we don't recommend going full softy soft on it. So like I'm at 12 clicks and you can go up to 16. So mine's kind of in the
you could
middle.
be somewhere in that same
Well,
range.
mine feels like it's gotten stiffer over time.
So it could be at the softest.
Yeah.
And got some air
Or
in there.
or I'm just used to driving my Rivian. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
it's me or the car.
Right.
But I will say, I just think it's time to get it. That was 50 something thousand miles ago. It's time to just refresh it, refurbish it every 50,000 miles. I mean, that's a car that has lived a rough life and continues to do so.
This is what that car looked like, by the way, like
So sick.
2 hours later.
Yeah, that's just I love
This is,
that so much.
and then you have Tijmen Spec right here.
Right.
Whoa,
That's
that's on
too-
bags.
Okay, not
that's
the
that's
pillows.
too
That's
much.
too low.
And with the carbon on the
And that's not a performance. That's a long range.
port.
Okay. Tijmen is not a part of the Respect All Builds community.
Nope, absolutely not.
Okay. I am, as long as they're in the car, it's cool with me. But
I
You
mean,
just-
I'm glad that he put bags on a long range and not a performance.
Yeah, you just don't want to take that car on track. I toasted my brakes on the white one the first lap that I did on that car. Totally glazed the rotors.
yeah. Yeah, we've done that a few times.
Yep.
So, okay. Well, I think that, this isn't really like Unplugged versus Model 3, versus Mountain Pass. But in general, I think we all have Mountain Pass suspension. We're all
and been happy with it.
pretty happy with it.
Yep.
And it's all kind of worked on the first go. And mine has been tested and abused and beaten, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah, we have never tested unplugged stuff, or at
No.
least I haven't. I don't think you have either.
No, never driven on it, on Model 3 with Unplugged. They offered me a car once, but I don't know if they were like serious or not. So if they were, I feel like they would have set it up. But yeah, I mean, I have nothing against them at all. It's just, I just feel like the Mountain Pass guys are a bit more accessible, a little bit more down to earth. It doesn't feel like as big of a company. It just feels
Yeah,
like
it
these
feels like a small group of people that are just like making
Hardcore.
cool stuff.
Yeah,
Yep.
enthusiast. Sasha's like an engineer, but also an incredible driver, and like they're doing fun projects just for the hell of it sometimes. And not everything is polished and perfect, which I like. I like that
Right,
they
and
are
they're
just
about
authentic.
the EV road tripping as well, because Sasha or someone from their social media team had driven from Canada to Pikes Peak to do some racing in a Subaru they've built.
Oh, cool.
They have like a challenge Subaru, and I just like followed their story all along, and he was on the Aero covers.
Okay.
Should have asked how much extra range he got.
But yeah, I mean, I really like, I just like the vibe. And, you know, I think Out of Spec has always been this, like, we film with iPhones, we wear sweatshirts, it's not very pretentious, we're just dudes. And I get the same vibe from Mountain Pass. Which is like,
Yeah, that's
just,
also why Jordan doesn't have a camera, because he's actually wearing a button down right now.
I'm not. That was yesterday.
but Mountain Pass is just like, these are guys who are really cool who just want to go fast.
Yep.
And help other people go fast. And I'm not saying that's not Unplugged's goal, but it's just, you know, you find people that you work well with the industry, and it doesn't mean you can't work with their competitors. I don't care from my side, but I just will say that I'm very happy with my purchase to spend my own money with Mountain Pass. And I've been very pleased with how my car drives, but I do want to send it up to them. I want to get it refurbished. I think I should exchange the coolant in the drive units as well, because it's been 150,000 miles of heat cycling and stuff. And
Yeah, that's been on track sideways in like 100-degree weather.
yeah, quite often. So probably due for just a good refurbishing. Get that car all dialed in, cleaned up. Needs a good Coleton detail.
Can do that.
It needs more than that. It just needs more fenders, everything.
Yeah, it's got some dents and dings.
Missing
And
some paint here and there, but
Yeah,
it tells a good story.
tells a story. But I love that car. So yeah, it's sticking with us forever. No plans to ever sell it.
Yeah, you tried to offload it to me, and I was like, I don't want that.
Yeah,
Something about something worse.
Well, I told you could just drive it, and you're like, oh no, I'll go buy one.
Diamond still needs to fix his AC in his car.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Use my referral link.
Dang. How much is it going to be? Have you had Tesla quote you?
No, but I've looked on Reddit, and they're like $4,000. So
Jeez.
to replace the entire system, just the compressor's $2,000. So I, just in case, need a couple more referrals.
How many more you need?
2.
Oh, then you're fine.
We
So
can get
you
there.
got $3,000.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah,
There we go. Tijmen's link in the description below.
that'll
I
be an
guess.
out of spec renew video. Why don't we send it up to? Oh, because we can't use Tesla credits on Alex,
Yeah.
so we'll just have Tesla fix it. But it'll be a good renew video either
Yeah.
way.
Yep.
So Jordan, when are we doing your car?
Doing what?
Lowering.
Well,
Do you have
fun.
the springs?
I have
No,
the
no,
springs.
no. I need that car stock. It's a
Kidding.
benchmark car.
Yeah,
kidding.
this is the efficiency spec. I would never compromise.
I mean, you would gain efficiency by lowering,
ooh.
Don't tell Andreas though.
but the goal here is to have a car that we can actually use for comparison testing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every car comes through, we show it how this one's better, and then
Well, that's
Oh my
whatever.
gosh.
This guy, base model activities.
Yeah.
so that's an hour show.
Oh, great.
Heck yeah.
Fun. Okay. Well, that
Perfect.
was, I learned a lot about suspension and the sagas that everyone's been through.